You're listening to the Modern People Leader podcast, where we go behind the scenes with today's top HR leaders and work experts. We talk to them about how they've gotten to where they're at, what they do every day, and what they see coming next for the future of work. Hope you enjoy.
Frieda, how are you doing? Welcome to the Modern People Leader.
Thank you for having me, and I'm super excited that I actually got invited here. Yay me.
I'm glad you're bringing this energy this morning because, as you've probably heard on the show, we're not like the biggest morning people, and it's pretty rare for us to do morning episodes. So I appreciate all the energy you're bringing.
The good thing is that you invited me, also not a morning person, to this podcast recording when it's afternoon for me. So in my area of the world, it's completely okay-ish because we have 4 p.m. So yes, I'm completely ready and pumped and ready to go. So shoot any questions at me.
You're on the other side of the day. We're just like getting started here. We're just like emerging, encountering, confronting the day. So the energy is, we appreciate it. And you definitely get the gold star before we even go into the conversation, before we hit record. You mentioned that you went back to episode 1 and just listened to all the episodes. And that is impressive because we have a lot of episodes now. So,
That's true.
Just wanted to shout that out. And since you've listened to all the episodes, we start with good news stories. We all share a personal or work-related story from the past week or two. We prefer for our guests to kick things off. So if you have something to share, we'll let you go first.
So good news stories.
Good news stories. Good news stories. So I know that you can either go work-related or personal, and I actually can go both. Yay. Personal good news story is I actually made sure that my husband agrees to us moving to Tenerife, which is moving our family from Germany to Spain. And am currently in this very fun phase of figuring out where we will live in a few months. So we are house hunting, which is a lot of fun. And we are actually flying out tomorrow to the island to look at a few potential houses, and maybe we can find something where we move into. So that's exciting. And the work-related good news is that I've just wrapped up preparing a little team offsite that I have planned for next week. So I'm going to meet with my very small people team on site, and we are going to have a few days of workshops, which I'm really excited for. So that's my good news.
You brought the excitement and energy, and you brought the good news. We love work and personal. I'll go next. My first is work good news, and we have 2 for Tuesday today. We have this podcast we're recording right now, and we have another podcast at the end of the day. So it's like a podcast sandwich on this Tuesday, which is exciting because the podcasts are, the most exciting part of my week. So it's nice to have 2 in one day. We used to do it all the time, and we don't do it as often now. So that's my work good news. My personal, I have my daughters, so I co-parent 2 teenage daughters. I have them all week though. So I'm in super dad mode, which is a lot of fun. I don't usually get to see them on a Monday night and wake up on a Tuesday morning, which I know we need to get you out of here as quickly as we can so you could say goodbye to your kiddos. So, and hopefully this is all warm up because I'm getting married in July and my fiance wants to have kids. So hopefully this is just good practice, getting me back into full dad mode. That's my good news.
So my good news is this is our last, so we have 2 podcast formats. We have the guest format, which you're a part of today. And then we have our kind of riff sessions, which we've now included Jessica Zvon in. This is my last recording for this format before the kid. So before the baby comes. So starting tomorrow, I'll be going into kind of lockdown mode in terms of recording. And so we probably won't record again until mid-June, late June.
I've ever gone that long without recording.
You maybe will miss all Christmas the good conversations.
Time, but that's about it. Yeah.
I'm going to have like my microphone talking to myself.
Steve, like a complete, I miss my partner mode. Like, oh my God, who am I going to talk to?
Like, Sarah, can you record a podcast with me? She's like, no.
Like, is someone out there? Can someone please speak with me? God, that's going to be fun, Steven.
That's exciting. Yeah. It will be weird, but it will be exciting times for sure. And so at this point,
also like baby mode.
Yeah. At this point, Daniel, what's most on your mind about baby mode? If like this is our last conversation about it.
Honestly, at this point, like I'm just, we're 2 weeks out.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been told that at this point it could just happen whenever, and the baby is considered full term. And so I just want the baby to be here. So I'm getting a little bit impatient. Like every few hours I'm asking Tori, like, so how do you feel? Like, you feel any contraction? She's like, yes, I'm fine. Like, I'm having some, but we're good. And so I think it's just a waiting game, and I'm a little bit impatient. So
yeah. But also it's going to be probably the most life-changing thing in your life. Today you might have an idea of what your life might look like in 2 months' time. I'm telling you, it's not going to look like that at all.
I don't have to be scared or excited or both.
It's a nervo-sided
or excited, whatever it is. But just know that whatever you imagine your future to look like will not be the case.
It profoundly
That's terrifying.
changed. Yep. That's
like you can basically not plan for anything, but it's going to be a lot of fun, and there's just going to be a lot of love and exhaustion in there somewhere.
Yeah.
So brace for that.
Getting ready.
Well, I had to ask, but that is off script.
We've had a lot of chief people officers come onto the show, and if there's one thing that they have in common, it's that they run their org their way. I think of people like Crystal Boyson at Sprout Social, who completely rethought performance reviews for her company, ditched long-form questions, created 3 clear ratings, which they then can auto-calculate into a final rating. I think of Carmel Galvin from Klaviyo, who ditched the generic way of measuring quality of hire and built a custom framework tailored to each team. I think of Jessica Zvan, who tracks LTV to ECAC to evaluate every single manager. Like, these are the exact kinds of people leaders who wish they had a tool like ChartHop. And for those of you who aren't familiar with ChartHop, ChartHop is a flexible PeopleOps platform and HRIS that brings in all of your people and business data into one place. So think, HRIS plus having the ability to bring in data from places like Salesforce. And they let you customize key processes like headcount planning, compensation, performance, and engagement exactly the way that you want it. No rigid templates, no one-size-fits-all playbook, just the flexibility to build the systems that you truly believe in. With ChartHop, you can really run your org your way. If their platform sounds like something that you want to learn more about, I highly recommend that you go request a demo. Just go to charthop.com and make sure to let them know that we sent you.
And so, we're here today to talk about you, Frieda. And so, walk us, I call this Brene Brown question, as you probably know. What's your story? One of the things before I hand over to you, one of the reasons why we reached out to you is we're planning to have more prominent European conversations with potential growth, possible growing and expanding. And we know that with content, it starts with the podcast. It starts with these conversations. We asked, people close to us. We have had, 15, 20 guests from Europe over the years. And we reached out to them and we were like, who should we have on the show? And Frieda, your name was like at the top of the list. And so we're super excited. I'm super excited to hear your story and how it led to you becoming the head of people and culture at Sastrify.
It kind of makes me incredibly kind of happy to hear that I was actually like somewhere on top of the list. Like, that's so cool to hear.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it always makes me a little self-conscious because I always think like, oh my God, like they've had all these great people on there. And how do I compare to what I'm doing to, I don't know, the CPO at Dropbox or something, where I just think like, okay, that's a completely different level. But to your question, how did I end up where I currently am? It's kind of this probably not so common story of someone who actually chose a people and HR career path, because what I hear a lot is that people just accidentally end up in people roles. And that was not the case for me. I actually chose this as a career. After some thinking and searching. I kind of started out in, like, after finishing my school, I just thought, like, I want to study something, but I wasn't really sure about what. And then I asked my dad, and he gave me very sane advice, which is, like, if you don't know what to study, just go for a business degree. You can do anything with that. And I just thought, like, yeah, okay, that sounds smart. Let's do that. And I also knew that I wanted to have some kind of idea of how work feels like when I've ended this degree. So I chose to do a dual studies program, which is basically studying full-time and working full-time. So you're basically interning the whole entire time while you're studying, which is, in my opinion, a pretty cool way of finding out what you like about work and what you don't like about work, and also applying what you're learning in theory and trying to see what you can put into practice. So I did that at a very large German corporate, Deutsche Telekom. So the fun thing about it was that I was actually interning in a lot of different departments. Like, I started in, I don't know, IT security. I did a little bit of a stint in marketing and a little bit in finance and sales. And with all of that, I kind of constantly thought, like, yeah, not my thing. Oh, no, not my thing. Can't see myself doing that for the rest of my life. And then in probably like 6 months before I was actually like finishing my degree, I just thought, like, oh God, I still haven't found the thing that I like. What do I do now? And then I did an internship in recruitment and talent services. And that was the first thing where I just thought, like, oh yeah, that might be something. I might be onto something like this, working with people, doing a little bit of career thingies, interviewing, like the whole psychology thing. That kind of felt like my area where I wanted to do more. And then I took it like to this direction from there. So I actually decided to do another like master's program on top of that. So I actually did a master's in human resources management. Also, again, like studying while working full time. And the second thing that I learned, besides that I wanted to do something with people, was that I do not really like working in huge corporations, because I didn't really feel the impact of my work too much. So I decided to strategically join smaller and smaller organizations over time. And I tried different industries. I started out in like talent and recruiting services. I went into healthcare and medical. Then I also switched into IT consulting, always doing the HR part. And then I ended up in my first startup. And that was where I just thought, like, oh, yes, now I'm onto something. Like, I joined LeanIX back then. I don't know if you know that company. It was bought by SAP, one of the largest German exits in the past few years in the tech space. And I actually joined them as their first ever HR person. That was really probably the best role for me, where I was kind of this generalist. I was doing everything from recruiting to onboarding to running payroll to, I don't know, trying to, I don't know, organize some company events, offsites, like the whole thing, like everything that was people related and everything in between was somewhat crossing my path. And we grew massively for quite some time. And that was really, really interesting to like be part of. And then I kind of now ended up at Sastrify, which is my first ever leadership position in HR or in the people team, which is really fun because I knew that I was a fairly good individual contributor in the space that I was in, but I now actually found that I'm a far better lead than I ever was an individual contributor. So I found another, let's call it, layer of maybe strengths over time. So by now I've learned 3 things about myself. I do not work well in large corporations. I actually do like working with people, even though they drive me nuts sometimes. And I am a better leader than I am doer, not saying that I'm not a doer. I still can do stuff, but I'm better like thinking in systems and finding the people that can do stuff better than I can.
That's awesome.
And I think I'm frozen. It says I can't.
Yeah, I didn't know if you were pausing or.
That was a
Hey, at
grand.
least you made it the whole story.
Yes, fantastic. So if we can switch, like just freeze by story, that's fine.
That was good. It was like a grand finale. It was
I
like,
know.
and done.
Hey, at least you made
But
it the full story.
We got through the Brené Brown question. That is like also my favorite question that you're asking, by the way.
Yeah, I love that
is
question.
like so fun.
Yeah,
love that question.
Well, I mean, what a story. Tell us a little bit more about Sastrify. If you had to give us like a 30-second description of what you guys do, how would you describe it?
Sastrify is a very fun space to be. We are actually helping companies with figuring out the best setup for their SaaS subscriptions and actually software management. So you can imagine that every company has hundreds of software tools in place, and it is near to impossible to figure out compliance for all of those tools, to not have shadow IT, shadow AI happening, and the risk associated with that. And then also optimizing the software landscape in the sense of like optimizing cost. So that is what we actually help companies with. So we actually call ourselves a software operating system. Which basically helps companies to buy, manage, and keep their SaaS stack compliant. And that's what we do.
Love it.
Oh, God, well, I think that pitch, my CEO might have to say a lot about that pitch, but that's the best I can do, Sven. I'm sorry.
Hey, you know what? People are great pitching, so I do not think that was a bad pitch at all. I think that was a great pitch.
Just recapping all the things that I didn't say, but that's fine.
You missed this value proposition. You missed this strategic edge. No, I'm joking. Yeah. I'm joking. I just moved the conversation along because I know I'm eager to talk about what we're going to talk about today. Because as the people that follow me know, I am obsessed with what we're going to dig into. And so in our prep call, the topic of treating the people experience like a product came up a lot. And to our audience, I promise we're not creating this reality. Because we recently launched, we recently announced our partnership with Jessica Zman, the author of Built for People, our new product called MPL Build, and our newsletter. And so this is like literally organically like happening. And that's why I'm so excited to talk about it. I've been on the people experience or managing a people team, like a product team. I've been on this like train for a year, and well, ever since I read the book, which was probably Jesse's book, which was probably 2 years ago. And I often tell people, because they're like, why did you guys choose this partnership and this topic? And in our conversations last year, and you probably, since you listened to all the episodes recently, can attest to this, like maybe 2 out of 10 conversations with HR leaders would this topic come up. Maybe. This year in the first quarter alone, literally like 6 out of 10 it comes up, and probably even higher. I'm trying to be kind of conservative because I know someone out there will call me out on it, but I promise we're not creating this reality. And so, to prove that out, like walk us through, how this idea first clicked for you. I remember you mentioned something about like stumbling upon this topic at the gym. Like that, I think that's tell us more.
Like, what do I do at the gym? I basically pretend to work out, and in between I'm listening to podcasts, usually yours, and I'm reading blog articles in between sets. So that's what I basically did. So it was a Sunday morning in the gym, and I was in between sets and reading this Medium article that actually Jesse put out there about PeopleOps as a product. And I was just like, reading and just forgetting about all the like sporty activities that I was pretending to do on the side. And while reading that, I just thought like, this is just brilliant. Finally, someone has given me the words of what I was thinking was missing, and it kind of clicked for me. I really had this feeling of having this epiphany, like this light bulb moment where I just thought like, oh, this is brilliant. This is exactly what I want to do and want to try out. And I was at that time, I would say 9 months into my leadership journey at Sastrify. And I was really at that point struggling because I was trying, because I had never led a team before. And obviously, yes, I had done things before in a startup environment. I knew how hypergrowth worked. I knew how the mechanics of the whole thing would be working, but obviously not everything that I had experienced before was applicable to the context and culture that I was then placed in. So I kind of try to find like best practices and look what others were doing and try to implement the things that looked great from the outside. But in the end, it ended up like not working out in our culture and context. And that really made me kind of hit this little wall where I just thought like, how do I get out of this? And then I read that article and I just thought like, yeah, I think that might be it, because if I approach it from this perspective of iteration, of putting out the minimum viable idea of something and getting early upfront feedback and then building something that actually creates value for the people that are using it, then I might be onto something. And that's what I then tried to do, and would say I've been sitting in that rabbit hole consistently for the past, 2 years now. And it's taken me a lot of very fun places, because first of all, my first reaction in the gym was, this woman is brilliant, I need to message her. And then I just wrote Jessie an email, and I thought she will never reply anyways. Like 3 hours later, I kind of had an email in my inbox saying, hey, cool that you like the article. Do you want to chat? And I just thought like, that didn't happen, right? So that was cool. And I kind of met a lot of other people through LinkedIn and other networks. Like, I don't know, Luke Mahoney, who's doing like the whole PX espresso thing. And it's just so fun to have people thinking through ideas this way. And I've really been on that journey to discovering, how does this apply to my work? How does this apply to my culture and context? And how can I make this my own? And that's been quite a fun undertaking. And I'm always like super curious to listen to other people like applying similar ideas. And that's the thing. It's not the one size fits all thing. It's just applying principles that give you the freedom to build and execute solutions that work specifically for your context. And that's like super powerful, in my opinion.
So I have a 2-part question. So part 1 of the question, you read Jessie's blog, you then consume a bunch of her content, maybe you're following Luke's newsletter, and you have all of this theory. Like, how did you actually start putting that into practice? That's part 1 of the question. And then part 2, I think I remember hearing you say that you have like 3 pillars of like how you're doing this. I can't remember them, but I'd love to hear a little bit about both of those.
Yeah. So I would say it was it was a gradual approach. Like the first thing that as I said, like I had this epiphany moment, and I really thought like, okay, this is the holy grail of doing things. So I was like super, like I'm a high energy person. I'm also like a super optimistic person. And I probably kind of overwhelmed my team a bit, meaning I bulldozed them into like, look at what I found. This is brilliant. Let's do this. And they just thought like, okay, what happened over the weekend? And I just basically started out with this idea of the first step to prioritizing and working in this way is visualizing our work. So I wanted to kind of get a better understanding of what we do, where we spend our time, and how we could basically transform this into working in a more iterative way. So I kind of started out with 2 exercises. The first one was that we did a employee journey mapping exercise in one of our team workshops, which was completely fun. We did develop like 3 distinct employee personas. We went through our whole entire employee life cycle. We discussed where pain points and gain points are. And then we started like really identifying, where do we see like universal pain points? What could we do about this? And thinking, like asking the deeper questions, like where's the root cause for this? And how can we like discover more about this? And And that was like step one. And step two was really starting to implement a agile approach to like running initiatives and projects. And what we ended up with over time is like ending up with a ScrumBan setup. So we're doing kind of a mix of Kanban and Scrum, and visualizing our work in Asana, where we have like a roadmap and a sprint board and running in 2-week sprints. So this has developed over time. Like we started small, but we started somewhere. And that is maybe like my main and major advice on like not thinking that you need to implement the thing perfectly by the book and do everything just as, for example, Jessie describes in her book. You can take some ideas from it, you can take inspiration from it, and just try to do what works for you. And also, if something doesn't work for you, like we tried daily stand-ups, didn't serve us, we're not doing them anymore, like just don't bother sticking to the rules, just make up your own. And do what you think feels right for your culture and context. And to your second part of the question, like the 3 principles that over time
So we keep coming back to the Annie Dean episode, and that's for a reason. Atlassian has mastered the art of running a distributed team, and Annie shared something that really stuck from their internal data. Daily office visits don't drive team connection, but 3 to 5 days of intentional togetherness, that does. They found that bringing teams together a few times a year led to a 37% increase in team connection, and that boost lasted about 4 or 5 months. So just let that sink in. It's not constant office time. It's not more Zooms. It's just one well-planned offsite every few months. That in-person time really matters. Not daily, but deliberate. Retreats, offsites, onsites, sales kickoffs. These are the moments that fuel culture, creativity, and collaboration. The problem that we see? Corporate group travel is extremely painful to plan, and it's one of the biggest line items on your budget. And so that's where Marco comes in. They make corporate group stay as easy as booking a personal hotel room. Think Airbnb, but for groups of up to 500 people. 1, they're going to negotiate on your behalf, so you'll get 20 to 30% cheaper prices on hotels. 2, the properties are handpicked for corporate group travel, so you're going to have the right mix of meeting spaces, communal areas, on-site dining options, and other group-focused amenities. Lastly, their AI-powered search makes it really easy for you to find that perfect hotel based on group size, city, vibe, whatever it is that you're looking for. And honestly, when Suman, Marco's co-founder, walked us through how it works, we were blown away by how simple it is to book group travel with them. Something that's been historically very manual and kind of complex. So if you're planning your next team offsite, leadership retreat, or full company gathering, I highly recommend you go check out Marco. There are no contracts, no signups, and it's 100% free. Go check them out at mpl.marcoexperiences.com. That's mpl.marcoexperiences.com.
Ruthlessly, by the way, copy pasted because I'm someone who thinks like I don't need to have all the original thoughts in the world. I just need to make them my own. We basically follow like 2 of the product maxims or principles that Jessie kind of initially put in there. And then I added the 3rd one, which I picked up from Luke, I think. So we basically have this triad of maximizing impact to the mission, like really thinking about like what all the things that we could do has the maximum impact on Sastrify's overall mission, and how can we empower our teams to actually get to that mission in the best and fastest way possible. So always this prioritization question of if we do this, we cannot do X, Y, and Z. How does the thing that we've selected now compare to the others in terms of impact and in terms of effort? And the second thing, and that is what we kind of took from Luke, or from the resources that Luke shared, was thinking like a scientist, which is really about working evidence-based and not developing things in your ivory tower and then just rolling out, a career framework that no one asked for because some, VC talent advisor told you that everyone has a career framework, so you also need one, obviously. So just trying to really think about like, what is the problem that we've identified, for which part of the population in our company is that actually a problem, how severe is that, and how much impact does it have if we solve that, and then really going into that user research mode. And I don't know, we are now like into conducting actual like interview initiatives every quarter where we talk to like a set of around 10 to 15 employees as an addition to our regular pulse checks, where we just try to find as much interesting and also like evidence proof points of either what we are doing is getting us to where we want to be, or where we have problems that we can then further investigate and see how we can solve them best, so that our users actually want to use whatever we produce. And the third principle is actually achieving everything through others. I would say the hardest one to actually, let's call it, get right. And I don't think that we are fully there yet, because in theory, it would be great if the people team was really building the plane, and for example, the rest of the team, for example, the leads and the employees, would be flying the plane. So actually using by themselves what you put out there, so that you're basically curating the framework in which work happens, but you're not running every single initiative yourself. We are partly there on some things that we've put out there, but some initiatives still require quite a lot of, let's call it, people team involvement. And the one thing that we are currently also looking into is how can we minimize people team interventions every step of the way, in order to actually be able to focus enough capacity on building the new impactful stuff. So that is kind of, I hope that answered the question of what we're doing.
You did, and then some. And the first thing I have to say is, Frieda, I think you're my spirit twin in Europe, like, because I'm also high energy and I'm also like a net positive thinker. And I will just come into the office one day and I'll be like, Daniel, we got to do live events. Like I just get this conviction and belief, and totally related to
Daniel,
all of
how
that.
do you feel about that?
Not great. Not great.
Sometimes it's good.
Depending.
Yeah.
It's good,
yeah.
more often than not.
And so the second thing that you mentioned that I want to talk about is maximizing to mission. And I think this is such a transformative way to look at business in general. Like, this isn't an HR and people team principle. This is really to me, a business mindset. Like, and it's how founders think. A founder is obsessed with the mission, obsessed with the product, delivering on its mission. And so to me, the utopia is like every employee is thinking like a founder, and every employee is applying that rigor of thought, because it is hard. And that's my first question, is like, how, maximizing to mission, like I just think this is such a great thing, but it's also a very hard thing. And I'm curious, like, how did you and the people team first approach, or how did you frame this for the team? Because it can be hard if you're not used to this type of way of thinking, to align what you do and prioritize what you do based on impact to company's mission. So curious on how you did that.
It's a good question, and I actually haven't really thought too much about how I did it, but maybe reflecting back, I think it's really about giving the team, first of all, visibility on what is the overall company goal set. Because what a lot of companies are doing, and what we are doing, is managing with, like, we are not using an OKR framework. We are actually using an NCT framework, narratives, commitment, tasks. It's pretty similar to OKRs, but a little bit of a different framing. And what I always make sure of is that my team is crystal clear on what is the overall company narratives, like the overall descriptions of what does success look like for us at the end of this quarter. What are the overall company commits, even though we might not be, for example, the team that is responsible for, closing new revenue or protecting current revenue or something, if that is like, for example, a framing of a goal. But we are the team that can enable that. So what we then think about is, for example, if the quarterly goal is protect current revenue, and we currently see that our account management team that is also responsible for our customer care, is currently struggling to hire a additional account manager, which we need. So we are capacity constrained in that team. Then obviously, whatever we do, the highest impact to our overall company mission in this quarter would be to fill and onboard, like to fill that position and onboard that person as quickly as possible, so that we have a contributing team member on board. And that then informs, for example, the capacity that we put into such a project. And then I would probably also, in terms of aligning priorities, look at all the things that we could be doing, and then just really with my team ruthlessly prioritizing towards like looking at our overall company goals. What is the one thing that we need to get done so that we get our whole team closer to that end state? And I think that is really the unlock to always not only think in silos and thinking about like what is on the people team roadmap, because yes, obviously we have 1,000 things in our backlog. Like we could be doing like probably a year's work full in a quarter if anyone asked me what I should be doing. But obviously you only have like a limited set of resources, a limited set of time. And when you need to really make a trade-off decision on what do you now prioritize, then it might be hiring the account manager and putting full force into, for example, active sourcing on that part, versus preparing the upcoming salary review or something, where you just say like, yes, obviously the other thing is also important, but currently this one thing will get us closer to achieving our mission. So we're prioritizing that.
I love that. And so in the team, how big is your team? I'm just curious.
Obviously, that has fluctuated over the past few years, because I think everyone on this podcast has heard a lot of stories of reshaping organizations over time. Currently, we are a team of 3. So me and two people experience specialists, and they're just fantastic in the sense of they are, I would say, really pure generalists. And that is super helpful in a setting like ours. I'm not necessarily saying that that is the way I would like forever scale this function. But for now, this is really the absolute right setup for the stage and the size that we're in. But I've also had like setups where we had like very clear-cut functions, where we had like a TA function and a PeopleOps function and an internal IT function, because yay, I'm also internal IT at your service. If your device isn't working, please don't call me. But you need to call me.
It's interesting because we've had these conversations a lot lately, and I'm hearing and taking away from the conversations of managing a people team like a product team is that to your point, there's no one size fits all. There's no one way of doing this, and it's almost like a decision tree. Like, do we have a foundation in place? Okay, maybe we should focus on hiring generalists at this stage. If we don't have a solid foundation in place, maybe we need someone with like compensation T-shaped experience so they can help us build out that framework. And so I have more questions. You also, the other thing that you mentioned was visualization. And so I'm curious, like, is that you and your team like taking Post-it notes and doing a whiteboarding exercise? Is that a Miro board? Like how did you guys approach the visualization, and like what tools and process did you use?
Has also evolved over time. Initially, like maybe added context, we are a fully remote startup. So there's no actual like sticky notes, because that wouldn't work in our context. So we like using, let's call it Miro for ideation. So we run like, for example, a goal setting workshop every quarter, where we really reflect on what are the company level NCTs, like the goals, the narratives, commitments, and tasks that we need to get done. And then really drill down the people team priorities. That's what we always run in Miro. But then we take that and translate it into our setup of how do we get work done. And at Sastrify, we actually use the SAN stack, Slack, Asana, and Notion. I came up with that fun little abbreviation.
Wait, what was that again?
The SAN stack, Slack, Asana, and Notion, like Slack for communication, Asana for tracking and getting work done, and Notion as the knowledge base in the background. So what we do with let's call it the outcomes of our ideation in Miro, is that we translate them into our Asana roadmap. So we do have a board that basically houses a people team roadmap. And we do have a backlog, which is kind of like long-term, like ideas that we might get to at some point, but that are not necessarily like currently needing to get tackled in this quarter. And then we kind of break down all the tasks and projects into upcoming 3 to 6 months. From that, let's call it that road mapping backlog, we then do a sprint planning every 2 weeks. And we basically take the tasks that are mapped to our roadmap and map them to our sprint planning board. And then we always have a clear discussion on the sprint priorities. We always define a clear sprint goal. Like, what does success look like at the end of the sprint? Like, what's the one minimum thing that we need to get done to make this sprint a success? And that's the ultimate focus. Everything else that gets done in that sprint as well is super cool, but that thing needs to get done. We also categorize everything we do by the employee lifecycle stage that it touches. So we've kind of early beginnings. I mentioned we did the journey mapping exercise. So we kind of have like very clear cut phases in our employee lifecycle in our journey map. And we kind of try to map it to that so that we can then also assess like who's the best subject matter expert to jump in on one of the topics. I said that we are all generalists, but obviously every one of us has like their small little T's and M shapes where we are a little bit more experienced. So that's where we try to also play to our strength, which is important in a small team.
I got laid off in November 2022, and I just remember having so many mixed emotions. I was sad, I was embarrassed, but I was also relieved. You know, one moment asking my wife if I should quit my job and try to make MPL work, and the next day that decision's being made for me. And you know, I'm lucky. Most people don't have a passion project to fall back on like the MPL. And it's terrifying and confusing trying to navigate your next steps after something like a layoff. And honestly, the outplacement services that were offered to me at the time felt pretty underwhelming. They didn't seem like they'd actually help. And I just remember feeling frustrated and a little bit bummed. I thought about asking for more support, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. I realized that the leaders managing the process were just as overwhelmed and frustrated as I was. They were being asked to do more with less. They were handling these layoffs with little support or guidance, all while trying to protect the company's culture and take care of their people. And so that's why Career Sandwich's mission really hit home for me when I met them. It's not just another outplacement service. It's holistic transition support that helps both individuals and the people leaders who support them, giving everyone a little bit of peace of mind during a really crazy time like a layoff. And they do more than just help your alumni brush up on their resume. They help them tell their story. From figuring out who they are to defining where they want to go next, Career Sandwich helps them craft a narrative that really makes sense of the journey. And their platform is pretty sick. There's one-on-one coaching, there's group workshops, there's on-demand resources that are designed to help alumni really articulate their value, the story, and feel a little bit more confident about their next steps in a time that feels very uncertain. And so if you're an HR leader that's having to part ways with people from your team and need support, making this process as least crappy as it can possibly be, then I highly recommend checking out Career Sandwich. If you want to get in contact with their team, go to careersandwich.com/MPL. That's careersandwich.com/MPL.
That was all great. And we're big on process, and our audience loves playbooks. And I think that was one of the best walkthroughs of how you are identifying, the work that you're going to do, your sprint planning, how you're organizing the work, how you're managing the work, how you're tying it back to the mission of the company, but also tying it back to the subject matter and functional areas within the people team. You mentioned something called ScrumBan
Yes.
approach. What is that, and how's it worked?
So it's kind of a mixture of like these two agile methods of Kanban and Scrum. So Kanban is basically a very like just a visual way of organizing and visualizing your work. So you kind of have imagine this board where you have like different lanes. Basically, you always have a backlog, and then you always have something that you are currently in progress, like doing. And then you have at the end, when something is finished, a done column. We've kind of elaborated a little bit more. We do have 5 columns in total. We always have the NCT column where we have the one sprint goal in it, which is the one most important thing that needs to get done this sprint. Then we have the overall backlog, like all the tasks that we have prioritized into this sprint. The third row is then what is currently in progress, like what are we working on? Ideally, in that column, every team member only has one task at a time because we try to avoid context switching, but that is still like an ideal idea. Not always the case. Like sometimes we have 5 tasks in there and trying to get to everything. The fourth column is actually a column that is called blocked. Blocked is always the state when we've progressed a task to a point where we either require feedback or require someone else's input, so that we've basically progressed it to the point where there's no active to do on our part anymore, but we still cannot finish and complete the task because we're still waiting on either a review, a feedback, an approval, whatever. And then there's the done column. So that is our setup of what our Kanban board looks like. And why do we call it ScrumBan? Because we actually have combined it with this idea of sprint logic. So we basically took the ideas of Scrum, where you have regular planning sessions where you plan what work gets done in the next sprint. You do retro sessions where you actually like look into what did we achieve, why didn't we achieve what we set out to achieve, did we overcommit, or did we have some unforeseen blockers, did we need to reprioritize, like those kind of rituals that we took from the whole Scrum approach that is combined with our Kanban board. And what this actually enables is that we have a very good overview of what everyone in the team is currently working on. We have at all times a super clear documentation of where are we at with each of those tasks, because we have like a trail of notes in every Asana task. And we can also pull in all the collaborators that we need if and when we need them, and give them the visualization and visibility on where we stand with each of the tasks. And it's also like a super cool tool to actually leverage when some stakeholder comes to you and says, hey, oh my God, like XYZ just told me that they might be looking for a new position. So could we already open this role so that we are prepared when they basically hand in their notice? And then I can say like, yeah, thank you for bringing this to my attention. We currently have all of these tasks here prioritized and currently no capacity to also open an additional role. Let's discuss the priority of this in light of our overall company goals. And then I can tell you if we get to it this sprint or if we will actually put this in the backlog to get to it in the next sprint. So it's actually a very good tool to sometimes, let's call it, say no to a request that feels very urgent to one person, but in the light of the holistic view of how does this relate to other things that we're currently doing, is not the highest priority right now. So
have you had any other teams steal this planning process?
I wish, not yet, honestly. But I have a few people teams that are super interested in this approach and have tried out their own variations. So I'm spreading it in the people bubble. I don't know why anyone outside of the people bubble hasn't picked it up, because it's an insanely good system.
Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, well, it's officially on the hour, and we've got to move to rapid fire questions, unfortunately.
Yes.
So question one, what's one piece of advice that you'd give to someone starting in HR today?
One piece of advice. I think learn to learn is maybe the one thing that I would put out there, because if you are able to quickly try out new concepts, pick up ideas from other disciplines, maybe just transfer something that works in a completely different culture and context and try to make that your own. I think that is an adaptability and skill that is just needed in the future, because let's be honest, no one of us knows how the whole AI thing is going to play out. Like my 5-year-old is telling me to ask AI to explain stuff to him because it can do it better than I can. So I don't know what my future as a mother will look like. I don't know. I'm completely lost. Daniel, please don't be scared. Maybe your kid will naturally already ask AI and not dad. I don't know. But I think learning to adapt is a thing that I see in the future as a very relevant skill for everyone, not only in HR.
I agree completely. Next question. If your team gave you a superpower nickname, what would it be?
Okay, probably. Well, I do have that already. It's the Queen of Small Talk, because there's never a dull moment with me, and I can fill every silence with words, a lot of them. But honestly speaking, I think the characterization that I've heard most recently that I like to adapt or adopt is that I'm a curious learner with a bias for action. And that's actually something that Luke O'Mahony said about me. And I think it's fantastically accurate, and I really appreciate that statement. So curious learner with a bias for action is my answer.
Hey, Queen of Small Talk is also fun too, but
yeah, I know it's less helpful, but always good to avoid awkwardness.
Yeah,
not happening with me.
Totally. If you could steal one strategy from another company, what would it be?
I am actually completely and utterly obsessed with following everything that the company Lovable puts out at the moment, because I just think that it's insanely cool to claim as a vision to build the last piece of software, to basically build the software that enables everyone, no matter their engineering or coding skills, to build products and bring to life what's in their brains. And I think that is just such it's a really cool vision, and I wish that I would have had it, but I didn't. So yay to everyone at Lovable and similar AI coding platforms. I really appreciate you for your vision and enabling me to build stuff.
I instantly went to Lovable to see. I'd never heard of them, so we'll check. Definitely, we'll check.
Yeah, there are others as well, but Lovable is probably also because of the Lovable name my current favorite. So yay.
and minimal lovable product is a built for people thing also. So there's that. So that gets us to our final question, and it is, the way that we've had such amazing guests, including yourself on the show. Who should we have on next? Like, if there's someone within the people space that is just doing cutting edge work that deserves a spotlight, who would you nominate?
I've thought about it quite a bit, and I've landed actually at one person that I love living in my LinkedIn feed, which is, or who is Megan Trotter. Megan is actually a PXer, no, a UXer turned PXer, which I think is already a fantastic personal slogan. That's so cool. Like someone who actually started out in user experience design and user research, and now is doing people experience design. And she is just a fantastic person all around, and also someone who can share more thoughts, knowledge, and inspiration in this whole people as a product kind of bubble. And that's also me trying to promote that whole thing a little bit more and getting like from 6 out of 10 to 10 out of 10, because I really think that that is the future of how this profession should be run.
UXer to PXer. Okay, we're gonna have to reach out to Megan.
Yeah.
Final tradition on the show: one word or phrase close. So whatever's coming to mind for you. It could be a word or two, or three.
Oh God, I'm very bad at that. I think for me, I'm closing it with the word joy, because I really enjoyed this conversation. It's giving me joy, and I hope I brought some joy. So
Definitely
yay,
did.
joy.
I'll go next. I'm actually going to change mine. I'm going to go with high energy because I love a high energy conversation, and this was definitely that. So thank you for bringing the energy.
I learned a handful of new terms today, and the one that I really liked was narratives, commitments, tasks. I hadn't heard of that as an alternative to OKRs, and so NCT. That's what I'm ending with.
NCT is a really cool framework, and I'm frozen again.
But that's okay. This last freeze is I think
we'll leave it in
live
for the
with
people
it.
to
Yeah.
see.
Yeah.
You're part of the family now. Hopefully you'll come back and join us, Frieda. But it was an absolute blast. Well, thank you. That's esteemed company. So thanks for joining us, and we'll talk soon.
Okay. All right. Bye, Frieda.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Modern People Leader. We really, really appreciate it. And if you enjoyed the show, please leave us a 5-star rating. It would mean the world to us. And connect with us on LinkedIn. We want to know what you think about the show, and you can find links to both of our profiles in the show notes. Thanks again for listening, and see you on the next episode.